Y'all, hey, welcome back to my channel. Thanks so much for stopping by. Y'all, we've got a lot to get through today. I want to talk about the Kindle Voyage and why it's still a viable option if you're looking for a luxury e-reader to buy today. But before we get into all that, go ahead and like this video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and hit that notification bell so you can keep up with the shenanigans. All right, y'all, let's get into this. Some of y'all might not even remember the Kindle Voyage or might not even know what it is or what it was. The Kindle Voyage was originally released in 2014, and y'all, she was the belle of the ball back then. She was the first and only luxury e-reader on the market, so when people saw her, they didn't know what to think. But that's neither here nor there now, right? That was 9 years ago, y'all. Things have changed. Yes, 2014 was 9 years ago. I know, but things have changed a lot since then. So let's not talk about what it was like or what the market was like when the Voyage first dropped. Let's talk about how things are now. First, let's talk about the Voyage all by herself, what she has and what she can do. So, first, you'll notice that the Voyage is small. With it lit up, you can see that it's got a 6-inch e-Carta display. I think this was the first e-ink display, but y'all, I know that doesn't matter now. Like, again, the history of the device doesn't matter. It's interesting, but it doesn't matter to us today. What matters today is what it looks like and how it performs, I think, compared to other devices. So that's what I want to talk about. So first I want to talk about what it has and then compare it to other devices so you can decide if maybe this is a device for you. So it's got a 6-inch screen with 300 ppi resolution. I don't know if y'all can see that. I'm going to try to show you the resolutions later in comparison. But so it's got the resolution that we expect today in our modern e-readers on this smaller screen, like the smaller form factor. One thing that the Voyage did introduce back in the day was the adaptive front light. So there are sensors in the device that will pick up on ambient light, and if you have it set for the light to adjust, the light will adjust based on the lighting around you. And I believe that it'll darken as you're reading in the dark. I think that the light on the screen will come down as you're reading. Now, again, we'll talk about this later, but it doesn't have that warm light that we're used to with some of the modern Kindles. So the light will adjust down, but the warmth won't adjust up. So it's always this, can y'all see? It's always this like crisp blue-white light, which I don't mind when I'm reading like in the daytime or in the light or even like in the evening when I have a light on. But I do like this device a lot. You can probably tell by how I'm talking about it. I do like it a lot, but I don't read on it in bed because I don't want this very blue-white light when I'm reading in the bed. So that might be something to consider. As far as storage, it's got 4 gigs of storage, which we've talked about this before. Some of the newer, more expensive Kindles have big storage. Like with the Signature Paperwhite, that's one of the sort of upgrades you get on the Signature Paperwhite is it's got more storage. Y'all, I have never had an issue with storage on a Kindle. That might just be me, but to me, 4 gigs of storage is plenty of space. But I don't try to keep... I am a hoarder, y'all. I got all kinds of stuff all over the place and I have multiples of everything, but I don't try to keep all of my books on my Kindle. And as I'm saying that, I've even got like I'm about to show you 3 different Kindles that do all the same things at all the same times. I know, but even I don't keep all of my books on all of my Kindles all of the time. So storage on a Kindle has never been an issue for me. If it is an issue for you and you feel like you're going to want to carry more than 4 gigs worth of books around with you at a time, maybe something to take into consideration. Here's one thing that I really enjoy about this Kindle. I don't know, yeah, you can see it because of how the light is reflecting. The screen is completely flush with the bezel. There is no lip there at all. So there's nowhere for dust or crumbs or any kind of anything to get caught in that lip. And I don't remember, oh, it was the, never mind, it was somebody else's neighborhood. It was the Nook we were talking about when this was happening. But on a device with a recessed screen, if there's something in the like up close corner of the screen that you need to hit to get something to happen, the The fact that the screen is recessed can make that really difficult. This flush screen, y'all, is lovely. And it's plastic, so it's really sturdy. Like, I don't worry about dropping it. And y'all quit being smarty pantses. Those of you that watch my videos are like, well, you don't go out anywhere anyway, so you're not taking it anywhere to drop it. Quit that out. Nobody asked you. Anyway, back to what we were talking about. This flush screen, that the design, it's just, y'all, I don't know what else to say other than that it's just lovely. And while we're talking about the design, let's go on ahead and climb up on the elephant in the room and talk about the page turn buttons. I love the page turn buttons on this machine. Can you see them here? And I'll show them to you better later when we're comparing across devices. But the Voyage has page turn buttons on both sides. Can you see? And they're capacitive. Is that the word, capacitive? So it's not really a click. You just apply a little bit of pressure and you can feel a little bit of a click. Now, if you do, or you can feel a little bit of a vibration. Now, if you don't want that haptic feedback, you can turn that off. I like it, so I leave it turned on. And this took me a little minute to figure out, and I like flipped through 3 chapters of the book before I figured it out. The top buttons on both sides advance your page forward, and the bottom buttons move it backwards. I didn't really get that until I thought about if you're a left-handed person or if you hold your Kindle in your left hand. Look at where my thumb is over here on the left-hand bezel, right? So if I only had page turn buttons on one side and I was holding, and say the page turn buttons are just over here, and I'm holding the thing with my left hand, is it a big deal? No. Are you breaking rocks? No. But is it nice that you can hold it in either hand and those page turn buttons are there? It is nice. And I like it. And the fact that the top button always goes forwards and the bottom button always goes backwards, you don't have to think about it. It just goes forwards, backwards. So that's nice. And then of course there's the forwards and backwards on the screen. The screen does all the things that you expect a Kindle to do. If you touch there's like a little rectangle on the left-hand side to turn backwards, then like a bigger section on the right-hand side to flip forward. You've got your menu section at the top. Now this is the older version of the menu, but y'all, it gets you where you need to go. You've got your 3 dots that get you to your settings and all of those things. I'm not going to get us deep into the weeds on all of that stuff. We've been all through all of those things before. One thing about this device that I've noticed, and I think that it's because, I don't know, let me slow down. I'm a little bit too excited. I bought this one on eBay. I think I paid $70 for it, and I might have paid shipping, I can't remember, but it was like $70-ish. So I don't know what this device has been through, and it didn't claim to be refurbished, and Amazon does not sell them refurbished, so that wasn't an option for me. So I just got it, and I really enjoy it. The battery life is not stellar, but I think it's just because it's an old machine, and again, I don't know what it's been through. Now, I did some Googling and learned how to change the battery in it. Well, for me, I learned how to have either the intern or my other techie friends change the battery in it. I might or might not do that. If we do it, we're most definitely going to vlog it, but I charged this fully yesterday, or at least mostly yesterday, and it's down to about 50% today, like 24-ish hours later, and I don't know that I read on it at all. So it's just losing charge, which is fine. And usually I just leave it plugged in. So that's something to be aware of. If you consider buying one of these on the secondhand market, I'm not mad that this person sold me a Kindle Voyage and the battery's dying. It just is. I mean, it's an almost 10-year-old machine, y'all. So I think those are all the things that I wanted to tell you about the Voyage before we get into a comparison. Other than, y'all, please don't be embarrassed for me about the scuffed upness of the back of the thing. I bought it this way. I didn't do this. Because y'all know that the instant I bought it, it went directly into a case, and I couldn't find one of these fun clear cases like I usually get, so I got this fun case. But anyway, y'all know it went directly into a case when I bought it, so I did not do this to this machine. But look at where the power button is. It's offset on the, oh, and let me calm down. Let's talk about the power button first. It's offset on the back. So you know how people hate that the power buttons are on the bottom of the Kindles? And I completely understand why, and I respect that opinion, because if you hold it like this, like who doesn't? To me, if I were holding it like this, my pinky is right on that power button. So I see how you can hit that button, put your thing to sleep, do all the things. The only reason that's not an issue for me is that I keep mine in these rubbery like plastic cases, and that recesses the button, the power button for me. Otherwise, I'd be turning mine off all the time too. So it's nice that the power button on the Voyage is on the back. And y'all look at the shape of this thing. It's like this funky, it's like got a flat back and slidey sides. It's like a rubberized material, which I think like if your hands aren't, I just wiped it down so you can't see fingerprints. Plus, I just took mine out of the case, so I haven't been holding it whilst reading with like my paws all over it. But I can see where if you had your hands on it, that would pick up fingerprints or, you know, whatever from your fingers and not be nice. But as I mentioned, mine stays, which I'm not going to put it back in the case because we're going to compare them, but mine stays in a case all the time. So that's the Kindle Voyage, y'all. I'll probably think of more things that I forgot to tell you about it when we start comparing across devices. But what I want to do now is talk about the Voyage compared to what I think is the most comparable current luxury Kindle, which is the Oasis. So I want to compare the Voyage to the Oasis. And I want to compare both of those to the Paperwhite, which to me is just the workhorse Kindle. Now, with that being said, I know that the Paperwhite isn't like the, by definition, I guess, the workhorse. It's not the entry-level Kindle, right? There's that, I think it's still $100, right? That $99.99 base model Kindle. But I love the Paperwhite. The Paperwhite has a few more bells and whistles than that base model Kindle does, and I think it's just a more apples to apples comparison with the Oasis for sure. So I want to compare a Kindle that I feel like is on more even footing with the Oasis, if that makes any sense at all. So I want to talk about the Voyage, the Paperwhite, and the Oasis, what each of them has, and talk about how they compare across certain matrices. All right, so lined up here we have the Voyage, which we were just talking about, the Paperwhite, and the Oasis. So let's start with just some basic specs. Let's start with screen size. As we mentioned, the Voyage is a 6-inch screen. The Paperwhite is 6.8 inch, and the Oasis is 7 inch. Storage. Now here's where things really start to kind of spread out. The Voyage has 4 gigs of onboard storage. The basic Paperwhite, so not the signature edition, but the basic Paperwhite has either 8 or 16 gigs of storage, just depending on which one you choose. And then the Oasis is 8 or 32, again, depending on which one you choose. Chargers. Now the Voyage is, of course, micro mini, because that's what would have been the thing back in the day, right? So the Voyage has an excuse for that. The Paperwhite is USB-C, as you would expect. And the Oasis is still micro mini, which I feel like is one of the major complaints that people have with the Oasis, is that for an e-reader at that price point, Amazon could up their game and at the very least update the power charger to a USB-C. But I digress. So those are the chargers across the 3 devices. And as I mentioned, the power button on the Voyage is on the back, where the Paperwhite has the one on the bottom, which people complain about. And the Oasis, remember that the Oasis, you can orient your page turn buttons to either side. So depending on if your page turn buttons are on the left, that power button's on the bottom. If they're on the right, the power button's on the top. So I don't feel like it's quite as annoying of a position as it is on the Paperwhite, but it's still kind of down there in the way. Just a side note. Each of these has 300 ppi resolution. The lighting is where they kind of start to break apart. I don't know how well you'll be able to see the difference in the lighting on these because it's light in here, but the Voyage is lit, as I mentioned, with 6 LED lights. The Paperwhite has 17 LED lights. And the Oasis has 25. Audio is another place where they kind of break apart. The Voyage, being from back in the day, has no Bluetooth capability whatsoever. The Paperwhite and the Oasis, of course, have Bluetooth capability. They don't have onboard speakers, but you can pair them with Bluetooth devices, either in-ears or cans or some kind of speaker, so that you can listen to audiobooks that you've downloaded onto the device. The only one of these devices that automatically rotates when you turn it is the Oasis. So if you want your page turn buttons on the right, you got them on the right. If you want them on the left, you can simply turn the device and they're on the left. And y'all, that seems so silly and like cush and bougie until you have it. And you don't have to go into your settings to change the orientation of the device. It's really nice. And it better be for the price point. So let's talk about that. I mentioned that I bought the Voyage that I have on eBay for around $70-ish. You can find them for more. I had found one for less and I didn't jump quickly enough. A viewer put a bug in my ear that there was one on an unclaimed baggage site for like 40 bucks. And I just missed it. I was teaching a class and I didn't get over there quickly enough to jump on it and I missed it. So if you're looking for one and you keep your eyes open, they're out there. But I just went ahead and bought this one on eBay for $70. So I'm going to call that like 70-ish because right now they're all a little bit more, but I think if you look and you dig around and maybe you make some offers, you can get them around $70. The Paperwhite is around $140-ish. You can find them for less when Amazon's running deals. You can find them refurbished. You can find them used on eBay, or you can pay significantly more. If you want more onboard storage, if you want the signature edition, if you want one in a certain color, so you need to buy a certain setup to get the color that you want, you can pay more than that. But we're going to call it around $140-ish. So it's around twice-ish what you can get the Voyage for. Now the Oasis is around $250-ish because again, sometimes you can find them on Amazon deals. Prime Day had some deals on them. Amazon really takes just about every excuse they can find to knock down the prices of the Kindles because y'all, they make boku's of money selling us Kindle books. So if they can get a Kindle in your hands, they figure they've got you locked in to buy books, which are consumables, right? So they're not scared to knock the price off a Kindle to sell it to you. Again, I digress. So we're gonna call the Oasis around $250-ish. If you don't buy it refurbished, you don't buy it used, you don't get a good Amazon Day deal on it, you're gonna pay around $250. So those are the different price points of these devices. And y'all, I don't know if I would call it a complaint, but a comment of concern that I actually got from a couple of different viewers on the Paperwhite and specifically the Oasis was the size of the thing. And that's what really got me looking at the Voyage, that the Voyage I feel like is a good option if you want something like the Oasis with a lovely screen with page turn buttons. They're not really buttons, but they do give you that like clicky, pushy feedback when you go to turn a page. If you're looking for that, and the Oasis is just too big for your hands, which the first time I saw that comment, I thought about my mom who has I mean, she has normal size hands, but she has like small normal size hands. And I thought about her trying to hold this device and read on it for an extended period of time. And I just don't think it would be comfortable for her. So that's when it kind of started to click to me that while I realized that the Scribe is ridiculously big, this might be a little bit big for a smaller statured person to try to hold comfortably for a long time and read. So this might be a good option for that. Now, honestly, I didn't realize until recently that the battery on mine was buying the farm. So that's something to kind of take into consideration. Y'all know I keep my stuff plugged in all the time, and I've got plugs all over the house, which the intern will tell you drives him crazy, but that's why I didn't notice that until now. If you read or watch reviews on the Voyage from when it first came out, that's one of the things that people loved about it, was that even though it's got this beautiful bright screen with the lighting and all of that, it still had great battery life. So maybe mine just has had a hard life and her battery's just a little more tired than average. I don't know. It's fine for me. I'm going to keep it plugged in. I'm going to read with it on the couch and everything will be just fine. So my bottom line on this device is I do think it's worth it, especially if you find it around that $70 price point. It's a lovely screen. There are things about it that aren't quite as modern as our modern luxury readers, but it's small. It feels good in the hand. I like the clicky buttons, that feedback that I get when I turn the pages using the buttons, and I like the overall look and feel of the device. So to me, it's definitely worth it. What do y'all think? What are you reading on? Let me know. Do you even have any interest at all in these sort of luxury e-readers, or are you perfectly happy with your Paperwhites or your Kindles or your Nooks or your Kobos or whatever it is that you're reading on? Let us know in the comments. Y'all, thank you so much for hanging out with me. If you made it this far, we're definitely friends. So go ahead and like this video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and hit that notification bell so you can keep up with the shenanigans. I upload food and fitness videos at the beginning of every week with some book videos sprinkled in between. See you on the next one.